Hi friends, it's Yana here today, and today I'm going to be showing you two things that are really cool and handy in the sewing room. So first off, I'm going to show you how to make this super cute sewing machine dust cover. And it's got these cute little straps on the side, which I also think I'm going to go ahead and monogram because I'm a little extra, if you didn't realize that already. Then I'm also going to be showing you a scrap catcher for our sewing machine. Oh my goodness. It comes in so handy when you don't want to make a mess. If you don't care about the mess, it's just cute to look at. And what's really cool about it is that you can also use it for many other things. So you can use the little bag for clips, for anything like that, and just put it somewhere else on your sewing machine. I'm going to be showing you how to use a coat hanger to finish up, because I love using unconventional things and I love being able to use just what I have at home. So let's do it. The first thing we gotta do is measure our sewing machine. So I'm gonna go all the way from the back bottom to the front, and that's 26.5 on mine. And I'm going to do, the width is 17 on mine, and then I'm gonna add a ½ inch to that for seam allowance. So I'm going to do 27, because it's 26.5 plus ½ inch, by 17.5. And that's going to be how wide I'm going to cut my fabric. I'm going to be using this beautiful fabric for my outer and this pink for my liner. These are two fabrics I already had. I think they're going to be so beautiful, and so I'm going to go ahead and use them. And I'm going to cut two rectangles, one of each fabric for my liner and my outer. One's going to be 17.5 and one's going to be 27, and that is the measurements of my machine plus a ½ inch for seam allowance. Now the really cool thing about doing this duster pattern is that you can do it for any machine you want to do it for. Honestly, if you want to do it for your Cricut, just measure it, and that's how big you're going to do it. If you want to do it for your Serger, measure it, and that's how big you cut this rectangle. Just remember to add your seam allowance when you are going to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get to cutting. After we've cut our rectangles, we're also going to cut 4 little pieces for our ties, because we're going to tie it on the side. So we're going to cut 4 pieces at 20 inches by 2 inches, and we're going to make binding on them so that we can tie them and add them to our duster. So let's go ahead and get to cutting. Now I'm going to grab these straps. I'm going to fold ½ inch on one edge. Then I'm going to fold them in half and give them a crease down the middle. Then I'm going to open them, and I'm going to grab the two sides going in, wrong sides together. And then I'm going to fold them once again down the middle to create that little strap. And now I'm going to do this with all 4 of my straps, and then we're going to go in and sew that strap down. Now we're going to place our, this is my liner side. I'm going to put it face up on my mat. I'm going to grab my straps, and I'm going to measure about 8 inches from the corner. So this is a 6-inch ruler, so I'm going to do right around here. And I'm going to put it right side up on it. Make sure that the strap that you fit in, the nice edge is on the inside, and you're going to grab the raw edges, the ones that are not so nice, and we're going to put it on there. I'm going to clip it with a pin up down here so it doesn't move on me, and I'm gonna do that for all of them, all 4 of them. I like to pin them so that there's a tiny bit on the edge hanging out. That way when I go to sew them together, if for some reason it moves or something, I can still catch it. Now I'm gonna grab my outer and I'm gonna place it right on top, right sides together, and I'm gonna pin around the whole edge, and I'm going to go ahead and sew around the whole edge, leaving a gap where I'm going to turn my dust bag around once I'm done. Make sure that as you were sewing, you removed all the pins. Now we're going to clip those corners. And if you are like me and they weren't all quite even, you may want to trim some of that excess. Now we're going to go back where we left that gap, and we're going to turn our whole piece around. Make sure to poke out those corners. And we're going to steam all the way around, tucking in that seam allowance that we left open. And now we're going to go back to our sewing machine and top stitch all the way around, making sure to top stitch that gap closed, and we are done. Now, on the rare occasion that my sewing machine is ready to go to sleep, we just drape it right over and tie our sides. Super easy and super cute. Alright friends, so now we're going to move on to our scrap catcher. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, we're going to make the part that's going to go under our sewing machine. Once I'm done with this, it's going to kind of turn out like a little bag, so if you wanted to add like sand to it or rice or something to it to give it more weight, you can do that. But honestly, I'm just going to place it underneath my serger, and the weight of my serger keeps it straight down and it like lays on top of it, so I find that that's enough for me. But if you wanted to put some weight to it, you for sure can. So I just grabbed a piece of paper. I think that's an 8x10 piece of paper, and I'm just putting it right on top because I think this will be fine measuring wise, and then I don't have to use my ruler and measure at least this one step. I'm gonna go ahead and cut around it. I only need one of these because it's going to be folded and sewn together. And yes, I'm using a candle as my holder, my weight. Okay, then I'm going to grab that same piece of paper and I'm just going to fold it in half, and I'm going to cut my other piece. This is the piece that's going to connect my little thing that's going to go under my serger to my actual bag. So I have a little bit of extra on the sides. I'm just going to leave it. Alright, so now I've got my pieces for my first part. Now we're going to cut the pieces for our actual bag, and I am going to do a liner and an outer for that, so I'm going to use the same fabric, and I'm going to cut the pieces at a 9x20. Sometimes I just go ahead and place them right on top of each other and cut them both at the same time. And I'm using a water soluble pen just like I did with my other one. Alright, we're going to grab our smaller piece and fold it in half, longwise. And we're going to sew these two sides. So I'm just going to do a straight stitch on both sides. I'm going to cut my little corners first. And then I'm going to turn it around. Make sure you poke out those corners. Now I'm going to grab that other piece, my paper size. I have this little piece right here that keeps folding, so I'm going to steam it open. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my one piece right on top, right sides together, leaving those two areas on the sides, so kind of in the middle, right in the center, and I'm going to fold this one right over. Now this is the part that's going to go under my sewing machine, my serger. So you want to make sure that this side, this width is going to fit it comfy enough under your sewing machine, serger, and it's gonna stay put when you pull a little bit of weight on it. It fits just perfectly on mine, but if it's a little too short for yours, you might want to make the rectangle a little bit wider or taller. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew all the way around, but I'm going to leave a little gap right here where we're gonna turn it around once we're done. I am going to clip those corners and turn it. I'm going to use my nice little tool to make sure those corners are turned. I'm going to go ahead and steam the seam on the side where the edge is. And I can go ahead and top stitch where that area is. Now you can, if you want, you can go ahead and go around and top stitch around the whole thing to give it a more even look. But honestly, it's going to be under your machine and you won't be able to see it. So if you want to, you can just sew just that gap right there. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna top stitch that gap closed. Now it's time to sew our actual bag. I've got my outer and my liner, and we're gonna sew it right sides together. We're going to sew that top side, that top long raw edge together. I'm going to open it up, and I like to go ahead and just steam that seam open. Now I am going to turn them and sew that raw edge on the other side to turn them into like a tube. Alright, so I totally lost the part where I showed you what to do next, so I'm doing it again, but I already cut it. But what we're doing is, this is the seam we just sewed, so we fold it so that the seam is right down the middle. And then we are going to cut 2-inch squares in each corner. So we're measuring 2 inches, 2-inch square, and we're cutting those off the corners, which I already did, but you didn't get to see it, and now you see it. Once those corners are cut out, we're going to sew the lining and the outer. The outer we're going to sew completely straight, and then the liner, we're going to leave a little gap. We can turn everything around. So we're going to sew, leave a gap, and sew again. Now I am going to open those squares and sew them straight to sew those corners closed. Once our little sides have been sewn, we're going to go back to that gap that we left in the liner and turn it all around. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and sew that little gap closed, just top stitching that seam allowance right there. Now that that gap's been closed, we can go ahead and tuck it in. And we have a little pouch. The really cool thing about this is that you could do the same thing for a clip holder and attach it to the edge of your sewing machine. Before you close that gap up, I meant to tell you, you could put sand in there, you could put rice in there, whatever you want, and that will hold it stable on your sewing machine. So if you wanted to do that and then turn this into a clip bag, that would work great, or a bag that you could throw your scissors in or anything in that you're going to use for sewing. So it's a multi-use little bag thingy. And you could also make an Easter basket with this. So anyway, what we're going to do now is, how do we attach these two together so it can go on our sewing machine? Well, I told you a little bit about what we was going to use, unconventional item. But first, one way that you can do it is you can either sew the bag right on there, and that will work just fine. But the only reason I don't like that so much, it's that every time that you go to empty it out, you'd have to lift your sewing machine, your serger, to remove the whole thing out of the way. So instead of doing that, you could also use some loop and hook, or Velcro, and you could sew a little stripe right here, and then sew a little strip right here, and attach it together. That way it's removable, and you could remove it back and forth. Some people also use a embroidery hoop and attach it to the embroidery hoop, and then it makes it open up. I personally don't love that method because then your bag will be opened completely. I like it when it's just sideways open, so it just slides right in. And then with our hanger, I used to have a thread catcher a long time ago, and it had the coolest little wire piece, and it actually went around it and it hooked, like it went like this, and it hooked to the bottoms of my serger. So it actually hooked to my legs of my serger, and I actually really like that. So we can use a wire hanger and our pliers, and we can go ahead and turn that wire hanger and put it around our bag. I'm just clipping it right on to see how much I want of it. And turning it as I go. Now, obviously you can do this with getting some wire from the store. You don't have to use a wire hanger. I just wanted to use something I already have. Now, you're going to want to measure how big your sewing machine is at the bottom, because you want to make sure that you cut it the right width, and I haven't done that, so I need to go check that out. You make like the little hooks. Okay, what we can do now is we can go ahead and grab our bag and turn it all the way around our hanger and top stitch around it. You see that? And then these parts right here is what goes underneath your sewing machine, and they latch on to the legs of your sewing machine or serger. Okay, I need to play with it a little bit more to get it just the shape that I want it. And I'm gonna go over to my serger and actually notice exactly where my legs are at, because I know it's gonna hook to one of the legs in the front and then one of the legs in the back, and then I'll go ahead and sew it. Every serger is a little bit different, so obviously you wanna check how big your serger is, how wide you want it, do you want it to go all the way around, or do you just wanna stop halfway through? So let me know, which is your favorite method? Do you wanna do your hanger method? You think you're just gonna sew it on? Will you be adding some sand to it? Or will you be using some hoop and loop to go ahead and just stick it on? Let me know below. I'm gonna go mess around with this a little bit more, and then I'll show you once I put it onto my machine. All right, friends, my bag is on and it's ready to go to work. Let's see how it works. Perfect. Once I'm done, I just empty it out and move on with my day. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed making our little trim catcher or dust cover. Please let me know below what you're going to be making. Are you going to be using the wire hanger? Or are you just gonna use the Velcro? Or are you just gonna sew it on? Either way, it's great, isn't it? Let me know. Also, let me know, what other machines are you covering up with this dust cover? I don't know. Let me know. Please remember to comment, like, share, subscribe. Make sure you comment and subscribe, most importantly, so you can be entered for our giveaway that we do monthly, $50 Ellie and my gift certificate. Whoop, whoop. And also, please come join us on our Facebook and Instagram page. We'd love to have you so you can see what everybody else is making and you can be inspired to make your own beautiful creations. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.